Marcus Chen sat in the back row of the Galactic Defense Academy's lecture hall, his head resting on his palm as Professor Vexatai droned on about basic combat theory. Around him, cadets from dozens of different species scribbled notes furiously, their multiple appendages working overtime to capture every word from the renowned Zolarian military strategist. Marcus, however, appeared to be fighting a losing battle against sleep. "Mr. Chen!" Professor Vextai's voice cut through the air like a plasma blade, causing several students to flinch. The insectoid professor's compound eyes focused on the seemingly drowsy human. "Perhaps you'd like to demonstrate the proper stance for deflecting a Corvin energy spear?" A ripple of barely suppressed laughter ran through the classroom. Everyone knew Marcus Chen's reputation. In 3 months at the academy, he had managed to fail every practical combat examination, stumble through basic drills, and generally appear as helpless as a newborn Terran kitten. His theoretical scores were decent enough to keep him from being expelled, but his physical performance was legendary for all the wrong reasons. Marcus slowly lifted his head, blinking as if he had just awakened from a deep sleep. "The Corvin energy spear, Professor?" "Yes, Mr. Chen. The weapon we've been discussing for the past 20 minutes while you were apparently visiting the dream realm." Standing up with what appeared to be considerable effort, Marcus made his way to the front of the classroom. His movements seemed clumsy, uncoordinated, as if his limbs weren't quite sure what they were supposed to be doing. Several Altarian students chittered among themselves, their translator implants rendering their amusement into standard galactic. Professor Vextai activated the training hologram, and a shimmering blue representation of a Corvin warrior materialized, its 4 arms wielding the distinctive energy weapons that had made the species famous across 3 sectors. The holographic Corvin moved with fluid precision, its spears dancing in complex patterns that would challenge even advanced students. "Remember, class," Vextai announced, "the Corvin fighting style relies on overwhelming opponents with simultaneous attacks from multiple angles. Traditional defense requires either superior technology or exceptional spatial awareness combined with perfect timing." Marcus stood before the hologram, his posture so relaxed it bordered on careless. His fellow students leaned forward, anticipating another spectacular failure. In the front row, Zara Uldin, a Martian-born cadet known for her exceptional combat scores, shook her head sympathetically. She had tried to help Marcus with his training before, but nothing seemed to stick. The holographic Corvan began its attack sequence, all 4 spears moving in a coordinated assault that would test the reflexes of seasoned warriors. Marcus watched the approaching energy weapons with an expression of mild interest, as if he were observing a mildly entertaining street performance rather than facing a deadly combat simulation. Then something extraordinary happened. Without any apparent effort or change in his relaxed demeanor, Marcus began to move. It wasn't the dramatic, powerful movements one might expect from academy training. Instead, he seemed to simply flow around the attacks like water finding its way through stone. Each deadly spear thrust passed harmlessly through the space where he had been a microsecond before, while Marcus continued his gentle, almost casual movement. The classroom fell silent except for the hum of the holographic projectors. Professor Vextai's compound eyes widened as Marcus continued his impossible dance. The human wasn't just avoiding the attacks. He was doing so with an efficiency that defied explanation. Every movement was minimal, precise, using exactly the amount of energy needed and no more. It was like watching someone who had reduced combat to a mathematical equation and solved it perfectly. As the simulation reached its climax, with all 4 spears converging on Marcus from different angles in an attack pattern that should have been impossible to escape, Marcus did something that made several students gasp audibly. He moved in what appeared to be 4 different directions simultaneously, his body seeming to phase through the attacks before materializing safely in the center of the combat area. The simulation ended, and the holographic Corvin dissolved into sparkles of light. Marcus stood exactly where he had started, breathing normally, his expression unchanged. He looked around the silent classroom with apparent confusion, as if he couldn't understand why everyone was staring at him. "Was that correct, Professor?" he asked, his voice carrying the same uncertain tone it always did. Professor Vextai was quiet for a long moment, his multiple limbs twitching in what his species displayed when processing unexpected information. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note of carefully controlled amazement. "Class dismissed," he announced. "Mr. Chen, please remain behind." As the other students filed out, many casting bewildered glances back at Marcus, Zara Uldin lingered near the door. She had never seen anything like what just happened, and her enhanced Martian reflexes allowed her to catch details that others might have missed. Marcus hadn't just avoided the attacks. He had moved in ways that seemed to violate basic laws of physics. Once the classroom was empty except for Marcus and the professor, Vextai deactivated his translation implant and spoke in his native clicking language. Marcus, who should not have understood a word, responded fluently in the same language. "How long have you been hiding this?" Vextai asked, switching back to Standard Galactic. Marcus maintained his confused expression. "Hiding what, Professor? I just tried to avoid getting hit. Isn't that what we're supposed to do?" "Mr. Chen, what you just demonstrated represents mastery of at least 7 different combat disciplines. The movement pattern you use to avoid the final attack sequence is theoretically impossible for any single being to execute. It would require simultaneous knowledge of Tauri shadow step techniques, Andromedan phase walking, Corvin multidirectional combat theory, and at least 4 other fighting styles that take decades to master individually." Marcus scratched his head, a gesture that seemed genuinely puzzled. "I just moved where the weapons weren't going to be. Professor, it seemed like the logical thing to do." Professor Vextai studied the human carefully. He had been teaching combat theory for over 60 years and had trained some of the galaxy's finest warriors. He had never encountered anyone who could demonstrate such advanced techniques while claiming complete ignorance of what they were doing. "Mr. Chen, I want you to report to Advanced Combat Laboratory 7 tomorrow at 0800 hours. There are some additional evaluations I'd like to conduct." "Am I in trouble, Professor?" "No, Mr. Chen. I believe you're anything but trouble. In fact, I'm beginning to suspect you might be exactly what this galaxy has been waiting for." As Marcus left the classroom, his movements returned to their usual clumsy, uncoordinated pattern. He bumped into a chair, nearly tripped over his own feet, and had to steady himself against the doorframe. Professor Vextai watched him go, his scientific mind racing with possibilities. Outside in the corridor, Zara Uldin was waiting. "Marcus," she called out, jogging to catch up with him. "That was incredible! How did you do that?" Marcus looked at her with the same confused expression he had worn in class. "Do what? I thought I messed up again. Professor Vextai wants to see me tomorrow for more testing." Zara studied his face carefully. Her enhanced Martian physiology included the ability to detect subtle changes in heart rate, perspiration, and other biological markers that typically indicated deception. Marcus showed none of them. Either he was telling the truth, or he was capable of controlling his biological responses to a degree that would make him one of the most accomplished spies in known space. "Marcus, you just performed combat maneuvers that I've only seen in theoretical studies. Advanced students train for years to achieve even basic proficiency in techniques like that." "Really?" Marcus seemed genuinely surprised. "I just tried not to get hit. My grandmother always said that the best way to win a fight is to not be there when the other person tries to hurt you." "Your grandmother taught you to fight?" "Oh no, she would never hurt anyone. She just used to say things like that when I was little. Probably just old Earth sayings or something." As they walked down the corridor together, Zara found herself studying Marcus more carefully than she ever had before. She had always assumed his poor performance in combat classes was due to lack of natural ability or perhaps cultural differences between Earth and the more militaristic worlds where most Academy students originated. Now she was beginning to wonder if there was something else entirely going on. Marcus, where exactly on Earth are you from? A small town called Millbrook. You probably never heard of it. There's nothing special about it at all. And your family? What do they do? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. My grandmother raised me. She was a librarian. Very quiet, very peaceful. She always said that the most important battles are the ones you never have to fight. Zara made a mental note to research Millbrook and Marcus's background more thoroughly. Something about his story didn't quite add up, though she couldn't pinpoint exactly what was bothering her. As they reached the dormitory section, Marcus turned to go to his room. Thanks for walking with me, Zara. I hope I didn't embarrass myself too badly in class today. Watching him walk away, still moving with that same uncoordinated gait that had characterized every interaction she'd had with him, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus Chen was not at all what he appeared to be. In his room, Marcus sat on his bed and activated his personal communication device. The holographic display showed an encrypted connection to a location that wasn't listed in any galactic database. "Grandmother," he said quietly, "I think people are starting to notice." The elderly woman who appeared in the hologram smiled gently. "Already? I thought you might make it through at least one full term before your true nature began to show." I tried to hold back, but the combat simulation was designed to be lethal, even in training mode. I couldn't let myself actually get hurt. "Of course not, dear. Your reflexes won't allow you to take damage when you can prevent it. Did you remember to make it look accidental?" Marcus nodded. "I acted confused and clumsy afterward, just like you taught me. But I think the professor suspects something." Professor Vexatai is one of the finest military minds in known space. If anyone was going to notice, it would be him. The elderly woman paused, considering. "Perhaps it's time, Marcus. The galaxy has been relatively peaceful for too long. There are signs that the old threats are stirring again. The ones you told me stories about when I was little? I thought those were just fairy tales." "No, dear. The Void Hunters are real and they're returning. When they do, humanity will need to take its place as the guardian species we were always meant to be. You're just the first of many to awaken." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Will you tell me the truth now? About what I really am?" His grandmother's expression grew serious. "You are exactly what you've always been, Marcus. A human being from Earth, raised with love and care in a small town where nothing exciting ever happens. But you're also something more. Your species has potential that even we don't fully understand yet. Combat knowledge that seems to flow from your genetic memory. Abilities that manifest when they're needed most. Why me? Why now? Because the galaxy needs protectors, and humans have a unique gift for protecting things they care about. You care about your fellow students, don't you? About the people you've met at the academy?" Marcus thought about Zara's concerned expression, about the way even the students who mocked his clumsiness still included him in study groups and social gatherings. "Yes." "Then trust that instinct. When the time comes, you'll know what to do. For now, try to blend in as long as possible. Learn everything you can about the species you'll be protecting. Understand their strengths and weaknesses. And Marcus?" "Yes, grandmother?" "Remember that being underestimated is one of humanity's greatest advantages. Use it wisely." The communication ended, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. Outside his window, the Academy's training grounds were visible, with students from dozens of species practicing their combat forms under the light of 3 moons. Soon, if his grandmother was right, all of that training would be put to the test. Marcus lay down on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions he would need to deflect while maintaining his carefully constructed facade of incompetence. But tonight, for just a moment, he allowed himself to wonder what it would be like to stop pretending to be helpless. In the depths of space, far beyond the academy and the civilized worlds it protected, something ancient stirred in the darkness between stars. The Void Hunters had been sleeping for 1,000 years, waiting for the galaxy to forget the lessons learned in blood and fire so long ago. Their time was coming again, and humanity's true test was about to begin. The Advanced Combat Laboratory 7 hummed with energy as Marcus stood in its center, surrounded by the most sophisticated training equipment the Galactic Defense Academy possessed. Unlike the standard holographic projectors used in regular classes, this facility could generate solid light constructs indistinguishable from real opponents, complete with actual physical force and genuine danger protocols. Professor Vexatai observed from the control booth alongside Commander Sarah Mitchell, the Academy's Director of Human Affairs, and Dr. Kethvar, a renowned xenobiologist whose expertise in interspecies physiology had helped design training programs for over 200 different alien species. Begin with basic threat assessment, Vextai instructed through the intercom. Single opponent, moderate skill level. A solid light construct materialized in front of Marcus. It appeared to be a Centaurian warrior, standing nearly 3 meters tall with natural armor plating and 4 muscular arms. The construct held traditional Centaurian combat staves, weapons known for their ability to extend and retract at will, making them unpredictable and deadly. Marcus looked at the imposing figure with his usual expression of mild concern. "Is this going to hurt?" he called out to the observation booth. "Safety protocols are in place," Commander Mitchell replied. "The construct will register successful strikes, but won't cause permanent damage." The Centaurian construct began its attack pattern, moving with the fluid grace typical of its species. The combat staves extended and retracted in complex sequences designed to confuse opponents and create openings for decisive strikes. It was a fighting style that had proven effective against virtually every known species in the galaxy. Marcus watched the approaching warrior with apparent fascination, as if he were observing an interesting dance rather than facing a combat simulation. When the first staff strike came toward his head, he tilted slightly to the left. The weapon passed harmlessly through the space where he had been, missing by less than a centimeter. In the observation booth, Dr. Kethavar's multiple eyes focused on recording devices that tracked Marcus's biometric data. "Fascinating," the doctor murmured. "His heart rate hasn't increased at all, blood pressure normal, stress hormones completely baseline. It's as if he doesn't perceive any threat whatsoever." The Centaurian construct pressed its attack, all 4 staves moving in a coordinated assault that should have overwhelmed any single opponent. Marcus continued his gentle swaying motion, each movement perfectly timed to avoid the incoming strikes. To the observers, it appeared almost magical. The humans seemed to know exactly where each weapon would be before the construct had even committed to its attack patterns. "Increase difficulty to advanced level," Vextai ordered. The construct's movements became faster, more aggressive. Additional weapons materialized in its hands, and its attack patterns shifted to incorporate grappling techniques and projectile weapons. This was combat training designed for elite forces, the kind of simulation that even experienced academy instructors found challenging. Marcus's response was to yawn. Not in any dramatic or mocking way, but a genuine sleepy yawn that suggested he was finding the entire exercise rather boring. Yet even as he yawned, his body continued its impossible dance around the increasingly complex attacks, never coming close to being struck. "This is unprecedented," Commander Mitchell whispered. "I've never seen anything like it." "Neither have I," Vextai replied. And I've been training warriors for longer than most species have had spaceflight. Dr. Kethvar's recording equipment was working overtime, capturing data that defied conventional understanding of combat physiology. He's not even watching all the attacks, the doctor observed. His eyes are focused on a point roughly 2 meters above the construct's head, yet he's avoiding strikes coming from behind him, below him, from angles he couldn't possibly see. In the training area, Marcus suddenly stopped moving. The Centaurian construct's attacks continued, but now instead of flowing around them, Marcus began to move differently. His casual, dreamlike motions transformed into something more direct, though still maintaining an appearance of effortlessness. He reached out and touched one of the construct's extended staves with a single finger. The weapon, which had been moving at tremendous speed, stopped instantly. The construct tried to retract the staff, but it remained perfectly motionless, as if Marcus's gentle touch had somehow locked it in place. "How is that possible?" Commander Mitchell asked. "That construct can generate force equivalent to a military-grade combat mech." Marcus touched another staff, then another. Within seconds, the massive Centaurian warrior was completely immobilized, its 4 weapons frozen in place by nothing more than the human's seemingly casual contact. "End simulation," Vex-Tai called out. The construct dissolved, leaving Marcus standing alone in the center of the training area, looking around with apparent confusion. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked, his voice carrying across the facility with that same uncertain tone his classmates had grown accustomed to. The warrior stopped moving. "I thought maybe the system malfunctioned." The 3 observers exchanged glances. Each of them had decades of experience with combat training and alien physiology, but none of them could explain what they had just witnessed. "Mr. Chen," Vex-Tai's voice came through the intercom, "please report to the observation booth." Marcus made his way across the training area with his usual clumsy gait, nearly tripping over his own feet twice and having to steady himself against a wall. The contrast between his current movement and the impossible grace he had displayed during the combat simulation was jarring. When Marcus entered the observation booth, Dr. Kethvar immediately began scanning him with handheld instruments, muttering in the clicking language of his species while reviewing the data his equipment had captured. "Mr. Chen," Commander Mitchell began, "I need to ask you some questions about your background." "Of course, Commander. Is there a problem with my academy enrollment?" "Nothing like that. I've been reviewing your admission files, and I noticed some gaps in your personal history. You list your grandmother as your guardian, but there's no record of your parents." Marcus's expression grew slightly sad. "They died when I was very young. A transport accident. I don't really remember them." "I'm sorry for your loss," Mitchell said gently. "Can you tell us more about your grandmother? Her full name, occupation, where she lives now?" "Eleanor Chen. She was a librarian in Millbrook before she retired. She still lives there taking care of the old family house." Dr. Kethvar looked up from his instruments, his multiple eyes blinking in rapid sequence. "Commander, these readings are extraordinary. Mr. Chen's cellular structure shows signs of genetic modifications, but not artificial ones. It's as if his DNA has been naturally optimized for combat efficiency." Marcus looked genuinely puzzled. "Genetic modifications? I've never had any medical procedures like that. I'm just a normal human from Earth." "Mr. Chen," Vex-Tai interjected, "what you demonstrated in the training area was not normal human capability. The techniques you used represent mastery of combat disciplines that take most beings decades to learn, if they can learn them at all." "I really don't understand what you mean, Professor. I just tried not to get hit. When the warrior stopped attacking, I touched its weapons to see if they were still dangerous." The 3 Academy officials looked at each other again. Marcus's biometric readings showed no signs of deception, his story remained consistent, and his apparent confusion seemed genuine. Yet the evidence of his abilities was undeniable. "Mr. Chen," Commander Mitchell said finally, I'm going to arrange for some additional evaluations, advanced medical scans, psychological assessment, and some historical research. In the meantime, I want you to continue with your regular classes, but I'm also assigning you to an advanced combat tactics course. Advanced tactics? But Commander, I can barely handle basic training. Wouldn't that be too difficult for me? I think you'll find a way to manage, Mitchell replied with what might have been a slight smile. As Marcus left the laboratory, still moving with his characteristic clumsiness, the three Academy officials remained behind to discuss what they had witnessed. I've contacted the Earth Colonial Authority, Commander Mitchell announced. There's no record of a town called Millbrook in any Earth settlement database. No record of Eleanor Chen as a librarian, retired or otherwise. Could be a data error, Vextai suggested, though his tone indicated he didn't believe it. Earth record-keeping was notoriously inconsistent during the early colonial period. Dr. Kethvar was still analyzing the biometric data. These genetic markers I detected, he said slowly. They're not random. They form specific patterns associated with enhanced reflexes, improved spatial awareness, accelerated neural processing, and something else I can't identify. It's as if someone designed these modifications with perfect knowledge of how to optimize human physiology for combat. Or, Vextai said quietly, as if human physiology was already optimized for combat, and we're just now seeing it activated. Meanwhile, Marcus was walking across the Academy campus toward his next class, Advanced Xenobiology. As he moved through the corridors, he passed groups of students from various species, all engaged in animated discussions about their studies, their homes, their dreams for the future. A group of young Altarians was practicing harmonized flight patterns in one of the open courtyards. Their natural ability to coordinate complex aerial maneuvers made them excellent pilots, and watching them work together was like observing a living work of art. Near the library, several Corvin students were engaged in a philosophical debate about the ethics of defensive warfare. Their species' natural proficiency with weapons made them natural soldiers, but their culture emphasized the intellectual foundations of conflict resolution. In the dormitory common area, Zara Uldin was helping a group of younger students with their tactical analysis homework. Her enhanced Martian cognitive abilities made her an excellent tutor, and her patient explanations were helping bridge the gap between different species' learning styles. Marcus watched all of this with quiet appreciation. Each species brought unique strengths to the Academy, unique perspectives on the challenges of maintaining peace in a galaxy full of different civilizations. It was a delicate balance, requiring constant effort and understanding from everyone involved. He was so absorbed in his observations that he almost missed the subtle wrongness in the shadows between buildings. Almost. Marcus's casual walk stuttered for just a moment as his enhanced senses detected something that shouldn't be there. A darkness that moved independently of the light sources around it. An absence of normal sound and electromagnetic signatures. The kind of void that could only be created by technology far beyond anything currently known to galactic civilization. The wrongness was gone almost immediately, fading back into normal shadows, as if it had never been there at all. But Marcus had felt it, recognized it from deep genetic memories that shouldn't exist, but somehow did. Scout probes. The Void Hunters were already here. Marcus continued walking toward his class, maintaining his clumsy, oblivious demeanor while his mind raced with implications. If the scouts were already conducting surveillance of the Academy, it meant the main force wasn't far behind. And if his grandmother was right about humanity's role as guardian species, then the time for hiding his abilities was running out faster than he had hoped. In his pocket, his communication device vibrated with an encrypted message from Millbrook. But Marcus didn't need to read it to know what it said. The galaxy's oldest and most dangerous enemies were stirring, and humanity's secret was about to be revealed whether he was ready or not. That evening, as 3 moons rose over the Academy campus. Marcus sat in his room and finally activated the message from his grandmother. "The Watchers have found you," the elderly woman said without preamble. "They're testing the Academy's defenses, evaluating the students. The attack will come within days." "How can you be sure?" "Because it's what I would do. Test the strength of potential opponents before committing to a full assault. Marcus, the time for pretending has ended. Tomorrow, you need to begin revealing your true capabilities." "What about the other students? What about Zara and Professor Vex-Tai?" "They'll need to know the truth eventually. Humanity can't protect the galaxy if we're still hiding what we are. But be careful, dear. Reveal too much too quickly, and you'll cause panic. Reveal too little, and you won't be ready when the hunters arrive." Marcus nodded, understanding the delicate balance he would need to maintain. "Grandmother, are there others like me at the Academy?" The elderly woman smiled. "Look carefully at your fellow humans, Marcus. Not all of them know what they are yet, but when the crisis comes, their true nature will begin to emerge. Humanity has been sleeping for too long. It's time for us to wake up." As the communication ended, Marcus looked out his window at the Academy campus below. Somewhere in those buildings were students and faculty from dozens of species, all working together to maintain peace and understanding in the galaxy. They trusted each other, depended on each other, and believed in the institutions and alliances that had kept them safe for generations. Soon, that safety would be tested by enemies older and more dangerous than most of them could imagine. And humanity, the species that everyone considered young and inexperienced, would need to step forward as protectors. Marcus closed his eyes and allowed himself to feel the combat knowledge flowing through his genetic memory. Techniques from civilizations that had existed before most current species had evolved. Strategies developed through conflicts that had reshaped entire sections of the galaxy. Abilities that had been dormant in human DNA for thousands of years, waiting for the moment when they would be needed again. Tomorrow would begin humanity's emergence from the shadows. The helpless student would start to become something else entirely. And the Void Hunters would discover that their ancient enemies had never really disappeared after all. The Academy's early warning systems screamed to life at 0347 hours, filling the dormitories with flashing lights and piercing alarms that dragged every student from sleep into sudden, terrifying awareness. Marcus was already awake, had been for hours, his enhanced senses detecting the approaching threat long before the Academy's instruments registered anything unusual. In the command center, Admiral Sector, a veteran Corvan warrior who served as the Academy's military coordinator, stared at readings that defied explanation. The sensors showed massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system, ships of unknown design dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation around the Academy's orbital platform. "How many?" Commander Mitchell asked, rushing into the command center, still fastening her uniform. 200 confirmed vessels, Admiral Sector replied, his forearms working multiple control stations simultaneously. "Configuration unknown. Technology beyond our current understanding. They appeared without triggering any of our long-range detection networks." Professor Vex-Tai arrived moments later, his usually calm demeanor replaced by urgent focus. "Have they responded to our communication attempts?" "Nothing. Complete radio silence. But Admiral, the sensor operator, a young Andromedan whose species specialized in detecting energy patterns, looked up with barely contained fear. "These ships are absorbing light. Our optical sensors can barely register them. It's like they're made of living darkness." The Void Hunters had arrived. Throughout the Academy dormitories, students were emerging from their rooms in various states of confusion and alarm. The mixed species population that had seemed so natural and cooperative just hours before now revealed the challenges of coordinating emergency responses across dozens of different physiologies and cultural backgrounds. Zara Uldin took charge of organizing the human students in her section, her Martian-enhanced cognitive abilities allowing her to process the emergency protocols faster than most. She was directing evacuation procedures when she noticed that Marcus was nowhere to be found. "Has anyone seen Marcus Chen?" she called out to the group of frightened students gathering in the corridor. "Probably still asleep," one of the students replied. "You know how he is with anything requiring quick reflexes." But Zara had seen Marcus in action now. She knew there was something different about him, something he was hiding. And his absence during the Academy's first real crisis struck her as more than coincidence. She broke away from the group and headed toward Marcus's room, finding the door open and the space empty. On his desk was an activated communication device, showing a message in a script she didn't recognize, though the Universal Translator's analysis indicated it was an archaic form of Earth Standard. "The time of watching is over," the message read. "The children of Terra must remember what they are." Zara's enhanced Martian vision detected movement outside Marcus's window. Looking down at the Academy's main courtyard, she saw a figure moving across the open space with fluid, purposeful strides. Even in the emergency lighting, she could recognize Marcus's silhouette, but his movement was completely different from the clumsy, uncertain gait she had always associated with him. He was heading directly toward the Academy's primary communications array. In the command center, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The unknown vessels had begun deploying smaller craft, sleek predatory shapes that moved through space like hunting animals rather than technological constructs. "Sir," the Andromedan sensor operator reported, "the smaller vessels are approaching the Academy platform. Estimated arrival in 12 minutes. Admiral Sector's species had fought more wars than most others in known space, but even his experience provided no reference for what he was seeing. All students to emergency shelters. Full combat alert. Activate all defensive systems." "Admiral," Dr. Kethvar's voice came through the communication system from his laboratory. "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the attacking fleet. These readings suggest weapon capabilities far beyond anything in our databases. Can our shields withstand their attacks?" There was a pause before Dr. Kethvar responded. "Sir, based on these energy signatures, I don't believe our shields will slow them down at all." Commander Mitchell felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. The Academy contained over 3,000 students from 47 different species, representing the future leadership of their respective civilizations. If the Academy fell, the political ramifications would destabilize half the galaxy. "Send emergency signals to all Allied fleets," she ordered. "Request immediate assistance." "Ma'am," the communications officer replied, "we're being jammed. I can't establish any outgoing connections." "What about the quantum relay network?" "Also blocked. It's like they know exactly how our communication systems work." On the Academy's primary communications array, Marcus stood before the massive quantum transmission dish with his hands pressed against its base. To any observer, he would appear to be just another confused student seeking shelter near the communications equipment. But beneath his palms, his genetic memory was interfacing with the technology in ways its designers had never intended. The quantum relay network hadn't been built by any species currently in known space. It was ancient technology, discovered rather than invented, dating back to a civilization that had existed before most current species had achieved spaceflight. And Marcus, through genetic memories that stretched back thousands of years, knew exactly how it really worked. His touch bypassed the jamming signals that the Void Hunters were using, connecting the Academy to a network that existed in quantum dimensions the attackers couldn't access. But instead of calling for military reinforcement, Marcus was sending a different kind of signal entirely. Throughout human space, on colony worlds and space stations, in research facilities and exploration ships, other humans were receiving a message that bypassed their conscious minds entirely and spoke directly to genetic memories they didn't know they possessed. The children of Terra were awakening. Back in the command center, Admiral Sector was coordinating what defense the Academy could mount when his tactical displays suddenly showed new energy signatures appearing throughout the system. "Sir," the sensor operator announced, voice filled with confusion, "I'm detecting incoming ships, human vessels, but they're not responding to our identification requests." "How many ships?" 30, 50. "Admiral, they're still arriving. These aren't standard military configurations. Some of these vessels appear to be converted civilian craft." Commander Mitchell felt a chill run through her. If human civilian ships were responding to the crisis, it could only mean that Earth's government had somehow detected the threat and was sending whatever was available. But civilian vessels against technology like this would be suicide. "Open a channel to the human ships," she ordered. "Advise them to maintain safe distance. Their vessels aren't equipped for this kind of combat." The first wave of Void Hunter attack craft reached the Academy's perimeter defenses, and the engagement began with a display of technological superiority that was both beautiful and terrifying. The Academy's defensive systems, state-of-the-art equipment, representing the best military engineering of a dozen species, simply ceased to function when the attackers passed through them. Plasma barriers collapsed without being touched. Energy weapons fired, but produced no visible effect on the dark-hulled attack craft. Missile systems launched their payloads only to watch them disappear into what appeared to be tears in space itself. Within minutes, the Academy's outer defenses were completely neutralized. But then the human ships arrived at the battle zone, and everything changed. The converted civilian vessels moved with coordination that defied explanation. Cargo haulers executed combat maneuvers that would have been impossible for purpose-built warships. Research vessels deployed weapons that existed nowhere in any known technology database. Passenger liners transformed themselves into configurations that seemed to violate basic engineering principles, and they fought the Void Hunters to a standstill. In the Academy's command center, Admiral Sector watched displays that showed combat techniques he had never seen before. Human ships were engaging in tactics that seemed to predict their enemies' movements before those movements were made. Their weapons were targeting systems that shouldn't exist on the enemy vessels. Their coordination was so perfect it appeared to be controlled by a single mind. "Commander Mitchell," he said slowly, "I think your species has been hiding things from the rest of us." Before Mitchell could respond, a new voice filled the command center, not through the communication system but speaking directly into the minds of everyone present. "People of the Academy," the voice said, "this is Captain Eleanor Chen of the Terran Guardian Fleet. We are moving to engage the Void Hunters. Please maintain your current positions and do not interfere with our operations." Commander Mitchell's eyes went wide. "Eleanor Chen? That's Marcus's grandmother." "Ma'am," the sensor operator called out, "the human fleet is moving into formation around us. And Commander, I'm detecting additional human life signs appearing throughout the Academy. They seem to be materializing out of nothing." Throughout the Academy complex, humans who had been students and faculty members just hours before were moving with purpose and coordination that revealed their true nature. Dr. Sarah Kim, a quiet professor of interspecies psychology, was now deploying technological devices that shouldn't exist while coordinating defensive positions with mathematical precision. Lieutenant Commander James Park, a recent graduate who had been assigned to the Academy as a junior instructor, was assembling weapons from components that had been hidden throughout the facility in equipment caches no one else had known existed. And in the communications array, Marcus Chen stood with his hands still pressed against the quantum relay, his appearance beginning to change as genetic modifications activated throughout his body. His muscles increased in density while maintaining their flexibility. His nervous system accelerated its processing speed. His senses expanded to perceive electromagnetic spectra that extended far beyond normal human ranges. Zara-ul-Din found him there, staring up at the battle taking place in the space above them. The human fleet had engaged the Void Hunter ships in combat that looked more like an intricate dance than a military engagement. Both sides moved with impossible grace, employing technologies that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "Marcus," she called out, approaching him carefully. "What's happening? What are you people?" Marcus turned toward her, and Zara saw that his eyes had changed. They now held depths that spoke of genetic memories stretching back through thousands of years of human history, including chapters that had never been recorded in any official database. "We're what we've always been, Zara," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. "We're human, but humanity is much older and much more capable than we've let anyone else know." "The Void Hunters," Zara said, watching the battle above them. "You know what they are. Our oldest enemies. They've been sleeping for 1,000 years, waiting for the galaxy to forget the lessons of the last war. But humans don't forget. We just pretend to, until forgetting becomes dangerous." The Academy shuddered as one of the Void Hunter ships broke through the human defensive perimeter and fired on the platform with weapons that turned matter into energy on a quantum level. But instead of destroying the Academy, the energy beam was absorbed by barriers that Marcus and the other humans had been quietly establishing around the facility. "How is this possible?" Zara asked. "Because this isn't the first time, Zara. Humans have been guardians of this galaxy for a very long time. We just stepped back when the other species achieved spaceflight, let them develop their own civilizations without interference. But we never stopped watching, and we never stopped preparing for the day the Void Hunters would return." Above them, the battle was reaching its climax. The human ships had begun deploying weapons that attacked the Void Hunters' vessels on multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. Dark-hulled ships that had seemed indestructible began to collapse into themselves, their exotic matter hulls failing as the humans targeted the quantum foundations that held them together. But the Void Hunters had weapons of their own that they hadn't yet deployed. As their standard forces began to fall back, larger vessels began emerging from faster-than-light travel deeper in the system. These ships were massive, each one the size of a small moon, and they carried destructive capabilities that could sterilize entire worlds. "Marcus," Zara said urgently, "there are more of them coming." Marcus nodded, his enhanced senses already detecting the new arrivals. "The dreadnoughts. We expected them. Can your people stop ships that large?" Marcus looked at her with an expression that mixed ancient sadness with absolute determination. "Zara, do you understand what it means that humans have been hiding our true nature for thousands of years? Do you realize what level of technological and military capability requires that kind of secrecy?" As if in response to his words, space around the Academy began to shimmer. New ships were arriving, but these weren't converted civilian vessels. These were purpose-built human warships that had been hidden in dimensional pockets throughout the galaxy, waiting for the day they would be needed. The new arrivals dwarfed even the Void Hunter dreadnoughts. They were built with technology that made the Academy's most advanced systems look primitive, and they moved through space with the confidence of vessels that had never known defeat. "The Guardian Fleet," Marcus explained. "Humanity's real military force. We've been building it for 1,000 years, preparing for this day." In the Academy's command center, Admiral Sector and Commander Mitchell watched displays that showed the largest space battle in recorded galactic history beginning to unfold around them. The Void Hunter dreadnoughts were engaging the human Guardian fleet with weapons that could crack planets, while smaller human vessels continued to protect the Academy and other vulnerable positions throughout the system. "Commander Mitchell," Admiral Sector said quietly, "I think we need to have a very long conversation about exactly what your species has been doing for the past few centuries." "I'm as surprised as you are." "Admiral, Mitchell replied, though even as she spoke, she was beginning to remember things. Childhood stories her grandfather had told her about humanity's real history. Dreams that had seemed like fantasies but now felt more like suppressed memories. Dr. Kethvar's voice came through the communication system. All personnel, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the human fleet. These readings suggest they're preparing to deploy weapons with output levels equivalent to stellar fusion processes. The Guardian fleet had arranged itself in a formation that surrounded the Void Hunter dreadnoughts, and as the Academy's sensors watched, each human vessel began to glow with energy that seemed to draw power directly from the quantum foundations of space itself. Zara, Marcus said, still maintaining his connection to the quantum relay. You should know that what happens next will change everything. The galaxy will never be the same after today. What do you mean? Humanity is about to stop hiding. We're going to reveal technologies, capabilities, and knowledge that will make every other species in the galaxy reconsider their understanding of how the universe works. Some will be grateful, others will be afraid. A few will be angry that we've been deceiving them. The human Guardian fleet fired simultaneously, and the Void Hunter dreadnoughts simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed in any conventional sense, but unraveled at the quantum level and dispersed across multiple dimensions. The remaining Void Hunter forces, seeing their most powerful vessels eliminated so completely, began a coordinated withdrawal that carried them back into the deep spaces between stars. The battle was over. Humanity had revealed itself as the galaxy's true guardian species, and the Void Hunters had been driven back to whatever dark corners of space had spawned them. But as Marcus had predicted, everything was different now. In the days that followed, representatives from dozens of species arrived at the Academy demanding explanations. How long had humanity possessed such advanced technology? Why had they hidden their true capabilities? What other secrets were they keeping? Marcus, no longer pretending to be clumsy or helpless, served as one of the primary liaisons between the human Guardian fleet and the galactic community. His apparent transformation from incompetent student to sophisticated representative of an advanced civilization became a symbol of humanity's emergence from the shadows. We never lied about what we were, he explained to the assembled delegates in the Academy's main auditorium. We're human beings from Earth, raised in small towns and big cities, dreaming of exploration and hoping for peace. But we're also the descendants of survivors from the last time the Void Hunters threatened this galaxy. Our ancestors made sure we would be ready when they returned. Zara, now serving as one of the student representatives in the new diplomatic arrangements, asked the question that was on everyone's mind. What happens now? Do humans take control of the galaxy? Do we become a subject species? Marcus smiled. And for a moment he looked exactly like the confused, harmless student she had first met. Nothing changes, Zara. The Academy continues its mission of training future leaders and promoting cooperation between species. Human vessels return to their hidden positions, ready to respond if needed, and I go back to attending classes, because believe it or not, there's still a lot I need to learn. But everyone knows what you are now. You can't pretend to be helpless anymore. No, Marcus agreed. But I can continue being a student. Because that's what humans really are, Zara. We're students of the galaxy, learning from every species we encounter, growing stronger through every friendship we make. The fact that we're also capable of protecting what we care about doesn't change our fundamental nature. Admiral Sector, who had observed the entire conversation, approached Marcus as the formal session ended. Mr. Chen, I have one question that I hope you'll answer honestly. Of course, Admiral. Are there other threats out there? Other enemies like the Void Hunters that the galaxy should know about? Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering how much truth the galaxy was ready to handle. Finally, he nodded. Yes, Admiral. The universe is vast and ancient, and not everything in it wishes us well. But humanity will be watching, and when the time comes, we'll be ready. As the delegates dispersed and life at the academy began to return to something resembling normal, Marcus found himself walking across the same courtyard where he had first detected the Void Hunter scout probes. The shadows were ordinary shadows now, cast by buildings and trees rather than by technologies designed to consume light and hope. Zara joined him as he had hoped she would. "Are you really going back to classes?" she asked. "Advanced xenobiology starts in an hour," Marcus replied. "Professor Kethavar says he has some fascinating new theories about interspecies genetic compatibility that he wants to explore." "And you're really just going to pretend that nothing has changed?" Marcus looked up at the stars visible through the Academy's transparent dome, stars that now contained human vessels protecting civilizations that most humans would never meet. "Everything has changed, Zara, but some things stay the same: friendship, learning, hope for the future. The desire to protect the things we care about." He looked at her with eyes that still held ancient knowledge, but also carried the warmth of a young man who genuinely cared about his friends. "Besides, I still have a lot to learn about being human. Turns out it's more complicated than I thought." As they walked toward their next class together, Zara reflected on how much her understanding of the universe had changed in just a few days. Humanity, the species she had thought of as young and inexperienced, had revealed itself as ancient guardians, with capabilities beyond imagination. Yet Marcus, the most powerful human she had encountered, was still the same person who worried about his test scores and enjoyed helping his classmates with their homework. Perhaps that was the real secret of humanity's success as guardians. They had never forgotten what it meant to be students, to care about small things as well as large ones, to protect not just civilizations, but also friendships. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. The Void Hunters had been driven back into the darkness from which they came, and at the Galactic Defense Academy, classes continued as they always had, though now with the knowledge that some students were much more than they appeared to be. In his communication with his grandmother that evening, Marcus reported on the day's diplomatic sessions and the ongoing integration of human guardian capabilities with existing galactic defense networks. "You did well, dear," Eleanor Chen told him, "revealing our nature without causing panic, maintaining our protective responsibilities while allowing other species to maintain their dignity." "It felt like the right balance," Marcus agreed, "though I think some of our allies are still processing the implications. They'll adjust. Most species are remarkably adaptable when they realize that change comes with increased security rather than decreased autonomy." She paused, studying her grandson's face through the holographic display. "Are you happy with how things turned out? No more hiding who you are?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "I'm glad the deception is over. But grandmother, I realized something during all of this. I wasn't hiding who I am. I was learning who I am. Being a student, making friends, caring about people different from myself. That's as much a part of being human as having ancient genetic memories and combat capabilities." Eleanor smiled. "Your parents would be proud of you, Marcus. You've grown into exactly the kind of person this galaxy needs as a guardian." "What happens now? Do more humans come out of hiding?" "Some will. Others will maintain their cover positions, continuing to watch and learn and prepare. The galaxy is vast, Marcus, and threats can emerge from unexpected directions. Humanity's strength has always been our ability to adapt, to be present wherever we're needed, without overwhelming the civilizations we protect." As the communication ended, Marcus looked out his window at the Academy campus below. Students from dozens of species were moving between buildings, attending evening study sessions, participating in cultural exchange programs, building the friendships and understanding that formed the foundation of galactic civilization. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, new opportunities to grow and learn. The Void Hunters might return someday, or other threats might emerge from the vast darkness between stars. When that happened, humanity would be ready. But for now, Marcus had homework to complete and friends to help with their studies. Because being a guardian of the galaxy, he had discovered, was really just another way of being a good student of life. The helpless student, who possessed every combat skill known, had learned the most important lesson of all, that true strength came not from the abilities you possessed, but from the people you chose to protect with them.